Who would Jesus vote for? It's a question that sounds almost impossible to answer, doesn't it? In today's political landscape, where it feels like every decision is steeped in division and chaos, it might seem that choosing a leader who reflects Christian values is more complicated than ever. But what if we stopped looking at politics through the lens of parties and policies alone? What if, instead, we asked ourselves, what qualities does Jesus value in a leader? What does the Bible teach us about making wise choices in a fallen world? In this video, we're going to dive deep into Jesus' teachings and explore the spiritual principles that can guide us in choosing leaders today. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll discover could transform the way you think about politics, leadership, and your role in making a difference in the world. Let's begin by understanding what leadership meant to Jesus. When we think of leadership, it's easy to picture power, authority, and control. But Jesus flipped that idea completely on its head. For him, leadership wasn't about ruling over others, it was about serving them. In the book of Mark, chapter 10, verses 43 to 45, Jesus says, "Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Here, Jesus is redefining what it means to lead. True leadership is about humility, about putting the needs of others before your own. This is in direct contrast to much of the leadership we see in today's world, where pride, ego, and power can often overshadow the true purpose of serving people. So if we're asking, who would Jesus vote for? We must first ask, is this person a servant leader? Do they seek power for their own gain? Or do they genuinely seek to serve others? One of the central messages of Jesus' ministry was about caring for the marginalized, the poor, and the oppressed. In Matthew 25, verse 35 to 40, Jesus makes it clear, "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." These are the qualities Jesus looks for, not just in individuals, but in leaders. A leader who aligns with Jesus' teachings would be one who shows compassion, who fights for justice, and who stands with those who have no voice. Throughout his life, Jesus consistently sided with the marginalized, whether it was healing the lepers, speaking to the Samaritan woman at the well, or defending the woman caught in adultery. So as you reflect on today's candidates, ask yourself, does this leader fight for the weak, the poor, and the oppressed? Do they stand up for justice and mercy, even when it's not politically popular? Because that's what Jesus would value. Another quality that Jesus deeply valued, and a quality he exemplified, was humility. We live in a time when pride and arrogance often dominate the political landscape. Leaders are praised for their confidence, but too often, that confidence can turn into pride, self-promotion, and a refusal to admit wrongdoing. Jesus spoke directly against this type of leadership. In Luke 14, verse 11, he said, "For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." When we examine political leaders today, it's important to discern the subtle differences between confidence rooted in purpose and confidence rooted in pride. Leaders who are driven by a sense of higher purpose, whether it's the well-being of their nation, the flourishing of their people, or the pursuit of justice, often display a quiet, confident strength. But leaders who seek power for themselves, driven by personal ambition, wealth, or fame, often display arrogance, using rhetoric to boost their image and position. Take, for example, King Nebuchadnezzar in the Old Testament. His pride in his own achievements led to his downfall, and he only found peace after he acknowledged the sovereignty of God. Daniel 4, verse 28 to 37. Nebuchadnezzar's story is a stark reminder that pride not only separates us from others, it separates us from God. So how does this apply to our decision-making process? As you consider today's leaders, ask yourself, is this person willing to listen and learn? Are they open to correction? True humility isn't weakness. It's the strength to admit one's limitations and seek wisdom beyond oneself. In John 14, verse 6, Jesus declared, "I am the way and the truth and the life. Truth was central to his mission, and it must be central to any leader we choose to follow. But how do we evaluate truth in a world filled with political spin, fake news, and misinformation? The Bible consistently emphasizes the importance of integrity. Proverbs 12 verse 22 tells us, "The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy." Jesus valued honesty, and those who follow him are called to walk in truth. When it comes to modern politics, however, the lines between truth and deception are often blurred. Candidates frequently make promises they don't keep, or they exaggerate their accomplishments to win votes. But as Christians, we are called to a higher standard. We must value leaders who speak truth, even when it's inconvenient or unpopular. Consider the story of Daniel in the Bible. Daniel lived in a time of great political turmoil, serving under various kings, yet he maintained his integrity. He refused to compromise his faith or his principles, even when it meant facing the lion's den. Daniel 6. Daniel's unwavering commitment to truth, despite the political pressures surrounding him, sets an example for the kind of leaders we should look for today. Leaders who speak the truth and stand by their values, regardless of the consequences. As you evaluate today's political candidates, consider their track record on truthfulness. Do they keep their promises? Do they speak with honesty? Or do they manipulate facts to fit their agenda? Leaders who walk in truth inspire trust, and trust is the foundation of effective leadership. At the core of Jesus' teachings is love. In John 13 verse 34, he gave a new command: love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. This wasn't a passive suggestion, it was a command, and it extended to everyone, even enemies. But love, as Jesus taught it, is radical. It's not confined to those who think like us, look like us, or even vote like us. Jesus commanded us to love our neighbors and our enemies alike. He taught us that love isn't just an emotion, it's an action. It's about seeking the well-being of others, even when it's difficult, even when it costs us something. In today's political world, we see so much division, anger, and even hatred between parties. Leaders often encourage this division, using rhetoric that deepens the divide. But Jesus calls us to unity. In Matthew 5 verse 9, he says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." As you consider candidates, ask yourself, does this leader promote peace and unity, or do they incite division? Do they build bridges between people, or do they create walls of hostility? Leaders who follow Jesus' example of love seek to bring people together, not tear them apart. But love in leadership also means holding people accountable. Jesus didn't shy away from confronting injustice or calling out hypocrisy when necessary. His love was not passive, it was active and engaged. So while we look for leaders who demonstrate kindness and compassion, we should also seek leaders who have the courage to confront wrongs and stand up for what is right. We live in a fallen world. Politics will never be perfect, and no leader will fully align with the teachings of Jesus. But that doesn't mean we're powerless. As Christians, we have access to a tool that is more powerful than any vote: prayer. The Bible instructs us in 1 Timothy 2 verse 1-2 to pray for all those in authority. This includes leaders we agree with and leaders we don't. Regardless of who is in office, prayer remains the most vital and impactful action we can take. When we pray for our leaders, we acknowledge that God is sovereign over all things, including political systems. We invite His guidance, His wisdom, and His intervention in the affairs of our nation. Prayer is not passive. It's not a last resort. It's an active and powerful means of inviting God to work in and through our leaders, shaping the course of history. When we pray, we align our hearts with God's heart, and we begin to see political issues through a spiritual lens. So as we approach elections, let us commit ourselves to prayer. Pray for wisdom and discernment. Pray for leaders who will reflect Christ's heart, and pray for healing in our nation that we might come together in unity and purpose. So, who would Jesus vote for? The answer isn't about a political party or a single candidate. It's about looking at the heart of leadership through the lens of service, humility, truth, justice, and above all, love. As you make your decision, consider these qualities. Remember that while we live in a fallen world, Each of us has the power to influence it for the better by aligning our choices with the teachings of Christ. And don't forget, pray for your leaders, pray for your nation, and pray that God's will would be done through those who hold positions of power. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. And let us know in the comments, what qualities do you think Jesus would value most in a leader?